out to me and getting me set up today. So happy to be with you all. I've got probably 15 or 20 minutes of kind of a general overview on our Go series, which is your primary units that you'll have on your boats. And then I've got some screen captures that will kind of help walk us through some of the charting, making waypoints, making routes, some setup stuff. We'll look at the sonar a little bit, both the traditional sonar and the down scan and side scan. And then we'll have some time for questions at the end. But if something's of urgent need, go ahead and interrupt. We're here to try to educate. So thank you all for having me tonight, and let's get started. So again, primarily you'll be using our Go series. These units have been around for a number of years, been very reliable. It's a 100% touchscreen unit. Um, They come in 7, 9, and 12, and I think you'll primarily be using the 7-inch units. These units do have chirp sonar capability built into the unit. It's also capable of doing side scan, down scan, or forward scan sonar. Um, One of the nice things with these units is, we're all out on the water wearing sunglasses out in the sun. Uh, so the way that we've designed these screens is that they're highly viewable in the daylight with polarized sunglasses, and it gives you a fairly good viewing angle both left and right as well as up and down. So you don't have to be directly in front of the unit like you had to be on some of the older units. The units do have cartography built into them. On the back of the unit, on the 7-inch, there is a single uh, S or micro SD card slot, which will allow you to add either a Navionics card or one of our CMAP cards. So Navionics and CMAP are both cartography companies. Navionics is owned by one of our competitors, but we do have the ability to utilize their cartography in our units. Whereas the CMAP is one of our brands, done in-house, out of Italy originally, and we'll be building more and more charting capability into those charts, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. These units do have NEMA 2000. That is a industry-wide networking protocol. What that allows us to do is to share information. So I can share things like the latitude, longitude in digits, the speed of the boat through the water, the depth of the water that we're in. Um, it can give me the bearing to a waypoint, cross-track error, how far off the straight line that we drew when we initiated a go-to function that we are. So any type of number can be shared between multiple manufacturers. When it comes to sharing a image such as a chart plotter, a radar, or a sonar, that all has to be done over Ethernet, and that has to be within the same family. So that would be with a Simrad radar, transducer, satellite weather receiver, etc. I would not have the ability to use a Furuno radar and have it show up on my Simrad screen. Um, these units, as we've all gotten more and more comfortable and used to living on mobile devices and tablets, these units do have Wi-Fi built in, which will actually allow us to connect a phone or a tablet to the unit, and we can do remote control. So if we've got some young kids on board, we can maybe keep them a little engaged by letting them look at the screen on their phone without coming in and getting in our way while we're trying to operate the boat. This will also allow us to upload waypoints, routes, and trails via Wi-Fi. One of the other things that we can do is if we are in the marina, or if we have a hotspot in our phone, or if the boat was in your yard, you'd be able to connect to your Wi-Fi at any of those spots and download operating system software. So 1 to 3 times a year, we will uh, put out new software that for the operating system. This allows us to fix any bugs that arise. It also allows us to expand the capability of the units. So the unit may have been developed before something like our new active target just came out. That's our live sonar transducer. So by doing a software update for free, that then gives us the capability to connect to that active target sonar and gives us the controls to operate that via a unit that isn't brand new. Uh, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, you would have probably thrown that unit off or sold it to somebody on the street for cheap and bought a new unit that could do the new stuff. Well, now we can upgrade your current unit. So it brings a lot of value into the products. Um, these units are also capable of interfacing to your motors. So I think you're primarily using Mercury uh, engines. So through the Vessel Link system, we have the ability to bring all of the engine information digitally onto the screen, and we can view that full screen. We can view that as a split screen where I've got chart plotter, radar, and the engine. So it gives us that capability to move information around and look at it depending on what type of situation we're in. If we can we please mute our microphones? That'd be great. Thank you. So again, with the multi-touch screen software, somebody's got their TV playing.
Put you on speakerphone and record it. Doyle refused to allow me to record him, but told me there must be a misunderstanding. The house was just being locked up, so it would be safe.
Please mute your microphones. Thank you. Okay. So again, using the touch screen, these screens are capable of being used if it's raining, if they get wet. Cold will affect it. It'll slow it down a little bit, but basically for us in the north, all season long, we'll be able to use the touch screen. If for any reason that you were wearing gloves, that would insulate your fingertip from the screen. So you would want to be able to maybe cut that fingertip off if it was real cold out, early spring, late fall. The nice thing is these have a very low profile, gives you a nice integrated look to your dash. They are capable of being mounted on a trunnion mount, which would be up on the top of the dash. So we do have options there. All of the Go series do have a 10 kilohertz GPS built into it. So for your installations and your style of boats, an external GPS is not required. On this particular slide was for the 12-inch units. On the 7-inch unit, there is a single micro SD card slot. On the 9 and the 12, there are two. Again, we do have built-in echo sounder. So that's broadband, which is your traditional sonar, and then chirp. And chirp is a compressed high frequency radar pulse. And what this does is, let's say we were perch fishing on Lake St. Clair. With broadband, I might need 10 inches to separate a small fish like a perch from the bottom. Chirp lets me get down into 4 to 5 inches of separation from the bottom. So it's much more sensitive, but it may lack a little bit as far as in range. But for what we're doing, unless you get into Lake Huron where you're getting in a couple hundred feet of water, you should never have a problem as far as losing bottom, even if you're using chirp. One of the other sonars that we have in is called down scan and side scan. This uses a much higher frequency than the traditional sonar. And what it does is if we're fishing rock piles or if there were, say, standing timber or weeds, I would be able to see the bottom. I'd be able to see the structure, being the rock piles or the weeds, and then I'll also be able to see the fish. This does have limitations as far as range. This only works till about 300 feet of water and primarily is used 150 feet of water or less. On the side scan, what we do is now we've got transducer elements that are pointing off to the side of the boat at about 70 degrees. And this lets us look at up to 300 feet of width on the bottom. So let's say that we're in Lake St. Clair and we're in 15 feet of water. At 200 kilohertz, which is a high frequency, narrow beam, I may be looking at 3 feet of water at 15 feet at 200 kilohertz. If I switched it over to, say, 83 kilohertz, I'd be looking at somewhere in the nine foot range of a circle on the bottom. And that's all I'm looking at in the water column. If I'm using the side scan sonar in 9 feet of water, that may actually let me look 80 to 100 feet either side of the boat. So I'm looking at somewhere between 160 and 200 feet of the water column behind the boat. So when we're searching for fish, for wrecks, that's going to allow us to see a much greater area that we can then start to funnel in towards the boat and get that target towards what we're looking for. Um, Forward scan sonar is a capability, not something that I think you'll be utilizing based on the boats that you're running. It's primarily used in sailboats and in slow speed trawlers. It's a transducer that goes through a through hull for slow speed, typically 5 mile an hour or less. And then you can pull that out and put a plug in if you're going to be doing greater than 5 miles an hour. So something that would be used a lot if we were, say, going out to the Bahamas. It's a very popular use out there. These units are capable of doing radar, but again, based on the boats that I understand you're using, that is probably not going to be one of the features that you utilize. There is an option for Sirius satellite weather. So this is the WM3 on the Go series. Those are in limited supply, but some of your boats may be equipped with that. That's a monthly subscription, and that'll actually give you the satellite weather. It'll look just like it does on the 6 o'clock news, except it's going to show up on your boat. There is an option for a remote keypad and rotary knob that could be wired into our NEMA 2000 to let us control that multifunction unit, the Go series, without having to touch the screen. Yeah. And then there's the NEMA 2000, which again is that proprietary language. And that's where we find stuff like a fuel flow or a tank level, um, perhaps a live well water temperature, or even a through hull water temperature if we want to go swimming over at the beach. One of the nice things with our product is that it is highly customizable. So Freedom Boat Club could have their logo put on as the wallpaper for the unit, or we could have a picture of the boat. If it was your personal boat, you could have a picture of the family or your dog, whatever you like. So again, highly customizable. One of the other things you'll note too is you'll see these tiles on the screen. So if we don't have radar, we'd be able to remove the radar screen tile. If you're not utilizing an autopilot, we could take that off. So we can simplify your options and help avoid confusion where, hey, I hit on a tile and it's not working. This thing must be broke. It's not that it's broke. It's just that we don't have the sensor input to make that function work on that particular boat. So again, something that management and I can sit down with and clean these units up for you a little bit. All of the units are chart plotters. So they again have the GPS sensor built in. They also have basic charting built into them. Those charts are going to show you some water depth. It's going to show you shading for depth contours. So let's say we put a safety contour of 6 feet. Anything that's 6 feet or less would show up as a shade of blue. And then those areas that are beyond 6 feet of depth or greater would show up as white on the chart. So that means it's a quick indicator that, hey, I'm getting into a blue zone. I better start looking at my depth sounder and make sure that we don't run the boat aground, or that I'm finding the channel, or that I'm in the channel. We do have, based on which cartography chart ships you use, there may be such things as satellite overlay. So that's what we're seeing over here, where we've got a satellite image of an island overlaid on top of the chart. You can see the shading of blue, so that's showing us shallow areas. And you can see the deeper areas that are marked here in white. And this is actually a 3D rendition of a chart. Here, this next one is a flat 2 degree, but again has safety contours, so we're seeing the depth shading. This next one is something that you'd see a lot down, say, like by Miami or Fort Lauderdale. So we've got intercoastal waterway, we've got our entrance, and then we've got contour lines and channel markers out here in the ocean. And then over here to the right, just another representation which shows an inlet coming into shore. Um, and then a couple of screenshots. So this is probably the most popular screen view that exists on the water today. We've got a chart plotter on our left. We've got our little boat symbol right here, which is the black boat symbol. And then it's showing us following a route heading up this river. On the right side of the screen, we have our depth finder. So at the top of the screen is the surface of the water, 0 feet. We have a scale going down the side. So right here is 5, right there is 6. So we're about 5.5 feet of water. We're at 200 kilohertz, which is that highly sensitive, narrow cone. And it's 15 degrees Celsius, which translates to probably something around 70 degrees, 68, 70 degrees in Fahrenheit. Down here, we have the bottom. So there's probably a little bit of grass along the bottom. And this red is the hard bottom. So that's the actual bottom surface. And then the thickness of that is telling me that that's most likely mud. Whereas if it was real thin, it would be a harder rock and it's going to reflect even brighter color. And how sonar works is that it's tuned to the density of water, and it's looking for density change. So when I hit a fish, it picks up the air bladder in the fish and reflects that signal back up to the receiver. When I hit the bottom, it hits that and reflects back up. So that's how we were able to create this image here. And then it's over in this right-hand corner. This is just a radar screen. So your location is in the middle. You can see the boat icon here in the middle of the chart plotter. This is picking up the shoreline up here on the right-hand side of the chart. And then we're getting the other shoreline down here on the left. You can see this little hook and a bay. There's a little hook in the bay. So this is all these little dots, most likely are other boats transiting around us. Things like the channel markers will respond a little bit stronger, and that'll be a little bit more obvious in a live setting than it is in a static setting such as this. In the charting, so we can do the 3D view or the nav mode. So this is be similar to what you've seen in your automobile. So your vessel's right here. This lays out your run line going to your waypoint. We can see our channel depth here, 10 feet, 7 feet over there. Over here to the right, we're at 2.2 feet, 1.5 feet. So we need to be cautious of these areas up here. Um, this is showing me the course to steer in the upper left-hand corner. I'm following Route 1. It's 1.83 nautical miles in length, and it should take me about 10 minutes and 59 seconds to get there. We are in 2.1 meters of water. Our speed over ground is 10 knots. And the route number 2 waypoint is 13 tenths of a nautical mile away and 45 seconds away. So this is my destination, and this is where my next waypoint is. If we are following a route, which is just a chain of waypoints to get us around known entities, so it could be a uh, reef, it could be a peninsula that sticks out into the lake. We're going to lay in that series of waypoints to navigate safely around a known obstacle. And the nice thing is those routes are then reversible. So I don't, it's like I'm down in Lake Erie. So if I want to go from Catawba Island to Cedar Point, I can create that route. It might take me 15 or 20 waypoints to get around the Marblehead Peninsula and get over to the park. But then it's reversible. So when I'm at the park and want to come home, I can go back to route number 1 and follow that in the reverse order. This again is showing radar overlay, so we'll go over this quickly, but you can see the radar targets overlaid on top of the land. And then if we looking on the zoom, we can see channel marker here with little dots on them. Right here, and right there are boats that are not on the chart, so that's why we're seeing them. And in the real world setting, of course, those targets would be moving as we were moving. Um, Grid files. So this is something where you can go to a website and download 72 hours of projected wind speed and direction. You're going to save that to a micro SD card. So download it on your computer, save to the card. When you get on the boat, you put the card in the back of the unit, and it'll upload that information onto the chart plotter and give you 72 hours of forecasted wind speed and direction. And that's a free service. Again, coming back into echo sounding. So chart here on the left, on the right, we've got a nice big rock pile that's pretty muddy. You can see all that thick recording right there. And then on that left side of that rock pile, you can see all these little fish arches. So there's a real good pile of fish feeding on some bait that's hanging on the left side of that rock pile. Up here above it, we've got some bait underneath the 9, and then some target fish probably chasing some bait around up here as well. Just a couple of different screenshots. So uh, this image over here on the right, the blue, that is down in Virginia. There was a bridge in a valley that was flooded. Uh, I believe it was part of the Tennessee water system that they did. But on the left-hand sides, we've got 200 kilohertz of broadband. Then they switched to medium chirp. And then on the right side, we've got the 455 kilohertz, which is the deeper, further penetrating, but less sensitive uh, frequency that we use for the down scan. At the bottom here where it says 8.4, this is another shot where you can see we've got some pretty dramatic rock piles on the bottom. We've got some vegetation and we've got bait hanging in that vegetation. That's what all these little clouds are, the smaller bait fish. Over on the right-hand side, we've got in the upper right-hand corner where it says 4.7. So we've got our chirp and our 200 kilohertz sonars. Then on the bottom, we have the side scan. So we'll get into the side scan a little bit more later, but your vessel is at the top of the screen in the middle. There'll be a white line going down, and to the left of that white line is the water column. So just like we have the water column here, surface to bottom, we turn that on its side, and now I've got surface in the middle with that white line going down to the bottom here. Over here on the left side of the bottom, we can see there's actually a boat sunk on the bottom, on the left-hand side. On the right side, we're not seeing much. Again, with our radar, so we're centered here in the middle. This shows us which direction we're going. Over here on the right, we have guard zones, so you can set up a circle or a segment. So if you're worried about what's going on your port quarter, because that's your dinghy blocks that from you, you'd be able to set up a radar sector that would give you a warning if something came into it. This image here, the right side is showing us weather. So that's what these green and red and yellow and orange blocks are, is the weather front moving over. And then we've also got the wind indicators showing us which direction it's going. And this is a less strong wind. Whoops. Less strong wind here than we have over here. So there's one flag, there's two flags. So that's how you can tell how strong the wind's getting. Uh, Autopilot, just so that you're aware, it's a capable feature. I don't believe your boats are settled with that. They would need a package that would have a motor, a computer, and some sensors. This is the Simrad Go Free, or we call it Link now. So this is something that you could, again, download onto your iPad or onto your phone. It will connect via Wi-Fi. So instead of connecting to your home Wi-Fi system, you would connect to the Wi-Fi that's part of the Go series, and that'll then bring up onto your screen the whatever's on the chart plotter screen. Be aware that if I wanted to change what I was looking at on the tablet, it would also change what was on the screen itself. I've highlighted here in yellow for you features of the Go 7, which again is your primary Go series that you'll be using. So high bright screens, multi-touch screen. So again, we can pinch to zoom or at the bottom of whichever screen you're active on. So if I've got two screens, I'm only going to be active in one. You'll see a plus and minus at the bottom that allows me to zoom in, zoom out. And there'll also be an orange ring around that functionality. So if I'm looking at the chart plotter on the left, there'll be an orange ring around it, and you'll have the plus and minus so I can zoom in, zoom out. When I go to the controls, which is up here in the menu, then that will give it for that particular feature. And if you look right now, you can see the orange box that's on the edge of this chart screen, as opposed to being either on the autopilot or on the data boxes. Uh, We talked about the Wi-Fi, we talked about the chirp, we talked about the side scan, down scan, forward scan. We talked a little bit about the NEMA 2000. We do have engine integration. So again, with your Mercury engines via the Vessel Link box, that's going to bring your RPMs, your oil pressure, your water pressure, your temperature, um, and then controls, alarms. All of that data is going to be available and accessible to you either as part of the main screen, like we have here with the chart plotter, or it could be a function over here on the side like the autopilot is showing. And that way I don't lose my chart plotter sonar capabilities. These are the different mounting options. So I'm going to guess primarily you'll be flat or dash mounted versus the brackets. As far as our transducers, so the total scan, or now we're calling it active imaging. We've done some rework since this was done. That's about a 10-inch long transducer, mounts to the transom of the boat. The cable will run through the transom and come up to the unit. Um, these primarily should be mounted on the right side of the boat. Most of your engines will be right-hand rotation. If you have larger boats that have twin engines, should be counter-rotating engines. So we're going to put the transducers in between the two motors. But if it's a single engine, we always want to mount on the right side so that the air and the noise coming off the propeller as it goes through the water doesn't disturb that sonar signal. Um, if you're ever out on the boat and last week, man, it showed left and right great, but this week all of a sudden I'm not seeing anything to the left. Somebody may have brought the outdrive down more than it needs to be, and that transducer may be shooting into the side of it. So if you ever see that where it's not working on the left side, try tilting the engine up less than 5 degrees typically, and that'll allow that sonar signal to penetrate and pass that lower unit, and you'll be able to see both sides of the water column. On the back of the units, the yellow connector is the Ethernet port. So this allows us to share radar. It'll allow us to bring in the Sirius satellite weather. And on some of the newer units, it would actually allow us to connect two GOES together to share the sonar, chart ship, waypoints, all that type of data. This little black connector in is the NEMA 2000. So that's again how we're going to connect the vessel link to get our engine data. If we had a fuel flow, a water temperature sensor, perhaps a tank level sensor, or the data fuel data manager, all that information is going to plug in on the NEMA 2000. And what you'll have is a cable that goes to a series of T's, and then the T's, each function or sensor would connect to the T along with a power cable. Um, and then that information is all fed to the display. Next, we have the 4-pin power supply. Um, shouldn't be much of an issue for y'all, but there is a yellow wire on the power supply that can be put to a switch to turn on the unit. It could also be connected to accessory units like, say, a NEMA 2000 stereo system, or to like our active target transducer box. And things, modules that are buried, this is an option to turn them on and off using this yellow wire off the power cord. And then lastly, over here to the right, we have the 9-pin sonar, which is where we're going to plug in our traditional sonar or our active imaging uh, transducers, which have the side scan, down scan, and traditional sonar all built into that one 10-inch long unit. Some of the other transducer capabilities that we have, the TM150 is a medium range chirp transducer. This little bracket here mounts to your transom. This is out in the water. The bottom of this should be level with the bottom of the boat. This cable runs up through the transom and up to the unit. In this particular case, we're talking about an adapter cable that would allow us to use a older style 7-pin and connect it to our new 9-pin units. A little bit of an eye chart here, but we do have some just simple skimmer transducers that would give us either 200 kilohertz and 83, which is the medium width. And again, if we're in 15 feet of water, which is probably average Lake St. Clair, we're looking at anywhere from 3 to 9 feet on the bottom. So if you see two fish in a 3 foot circle on the bottom, that's actually pretty good density of fish in that area. Could be a spot that you want to fish at. Um, and the higher you go up in the water column on the screen, I'm going to back up here a little bit. Uh, so the higher we go up in this water column, the narrower that is. So you can see up here, we're not seeing a whole lot of information at the top of the water column. And 4.7 meters, you're probably 18 feet or so. But down at the bottom, we're getting a lot more information down here because again, that cone is getting wider and able to pick up more information. Okay. I've got more, but this was just on the PowerPoint of things. I'll leave this for a couple minutes so you could grab a piece of paper and jot these numbers down. Uh, that YouTube channel is a great study tool. When you go to @Simrad-yachting, those are videos that we've put out. You can put Simrad Go into your search function. You'll find lots of different videos from some of them are pro staffers, some of them are just end users. But if you go to @Simrad-yachting, that is the information that we're putting out onto YouTube. And then if there's any issues, that 800-628-4487, you'll follow the prompts to Simrad, and that will get you to somebody that can help you
Would you
quickly.
repeat those Go series that you could go on the website, please?
Sure. So at YouTube, you're going
Mhm.
to go at the @ symbol, and it's Simrad, SIMRAD hyphen yachting.
Okay.
And then again, 800-628-4487 is the customer service number. So let's get out of that part. And we're going to come over to this. So we'll talk about some things, make sure you're set up properly. Um, if you're utilizing either the Navionics cartography or the CMAP cartography, that will allow you to do auto routing. But to do auto routing uh, properly, we need to put in the boat information. So when you go to your settings menu, there'll be an option for boat settings, which is what we've got here. So you go ahead and enter in the length, the width, the draft, and the height of the boat. And this then allows the system to calculate based on heights, channel depth, channel width, if you're going to be able to safely go that route. Uh, One of the other major things is GPS is basically doing a bunch of automated calculations for us that we used to do with a sextant and a watch or a clock. So it's very important that you've got the proper local time set up on the machines. So they're going to be set to Greenwich Mean Time, which is right now 5 hours ahead of us. Um, so you're going to come into time and update that off the settings menu. So you'll click on time, it'll give you a pop-up, and you can then, there's a little slider that you can use to dial in the correct local time. You hit save, and now when we're calculating the distance to a waypoint, it's going to give us proper information.
Hey Chris, hey Chris, I'm
Yep.
sorry. We're just seeing it looks like a red screen. It's a Simrad screen. We're not seeing anything else right now.
Okay, let me see if we can fix that. Do you have a black screen now?
We got the home screen where you're at.
Okay. Let's try this again. Are we seeing a bunch of pictures now?
We have a bunch of pictures. Good.
All
Thank
right,
you.
let's try blowing that up. Thank you. I wasn't seeing that on my end. So this is the boat setting screen. Everybody seeing that now?
We just
Patricia, have you
have
got
we have multiple pictures.
multiples? Okay. Let's see if we can do it this way. Technology is great when it works.
Oh yeah.
That's my problem. I'm a one-trick wonder.
Yeah. It says Dave's
Here.
telling us that he's
How about that?
there we go. We got
Boat
it.
settings. All right. So again, going back to setting that up, you can see you're just going to enter that data, hit save. Are we looking at time now?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So again, we can see here Greenwich Mean Time minus 4 hours should give us the proper time. If it doesn't, you might have to go to 5 hours for daylight savings. We hit save, and again, the machine now is doing the correct calculations. This is really critical when we're trying to find, say, channel markers for a channel entrance, or if you're trying to locate a rock pile to fish on, because if my time has got 4 or 5 hours of error, that can put that object up to 100 feet away from where it's actually at. And one of the things that we need to realize with GPS is that the government puts a little fuzziness into it. Um, so they state that the uh, target specificity or the accuracy is about 3 meters, about 9 feet. Practically speaking, it's usually probably 3 to 4 feet. But again, if your time is off, that can throw you off 50, 100 feet. If you're ever going down a river or an entrance and it's showing you up on the bank, that's probably because your time isn't not properly set and it's throwing the boat off from its actual location. Excuse me. So this is, again, where we find the time underneath the settings and system. Um, One of the things is, and this is more for the staff, but probably at least twice a year, you should come onto the boats, come to this screen and go to the about, and that's going to show us what uh, software version the unit's running. We like to do, again, software at least once a year, if not 2 to 3 times, depending on whether we need to fix something or add features. So it just makes sure that the units are always running optimally and that we've been able to correct any issues that might have existed. Here's a great picture of Lake St. Clair. So we can see our boat here in the center. We've got the shipping channel clearly marked. You've got your depth contours. You've got call outs on some of the local area. And let's move forward. Here, this is up by Hideaway Harbor, Beacon Cove. I used to dock over there. This is coming into Metro Beach. So just giving some examples of some local stuff for Lake St. Clair. This is coming into the South River, Anchor Bay, up into Mount Clemens. So here's an example where I picked a spot close to the Clinton River entrance. So my boat's down here close to the shipping channel, and the little lollipop here is my destination. The red line, excuse me, is my rum line. So that's the most direct route to that location. Um, all of us are imperfect. We're going to waddle around that line a little bit. If you really stop paying attention and you get way off to one side, the system may come up and say cross track error. You've gone too far off course. So there is a way of restarting your cross track error. You're going to come to the little 3 bars up here in the right hand corner. People call that the hamburger. When you tap on that, it'll pop out and give us navigation, and that's where we'll be able to restart. So it's going to pop up with this, and we can restart it, or we cancel it and then redo your go-to functionality.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
In our Florida waters, especially around Tampa, we have many areas that are 1 to 3 feet. And so I have my members on their Navionics use 3 different colors. Well, you're using 3 colors, but I use 1 to 3 feet for the really shallow water in dark blue. Then the medium blue is 4 to 6 feet, and then the 7 to 10 feet, and then the white is 10 feet and over. Can that be set on these as well?
Yes, so there is custom shading available on these units. So that's under
Okay,
the more options. So again, when we hit that little hamburger, this is the pop-up that we get here, clear cursor. This is where we go to for a new waypoint, new route.
where's the hamburger? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing that.
That is up here above the data boxes.
Okay,
So when I hit that, it's going to pop up with this sidebar.
okay,
So the navigation is where I would go if I got way off and I wanted to restart the cross-track error or cancel it completely. If you want to know how far something is away from you, you can come here and do measurement.
okay,
If we're looking for a marina or a harbor, we could come to find. There's overlays. So we could overlay the weather. We could overlay the grid files, which is that free downloadable weather. We could overlay radar. Or if I've got the structure scan, which is that 10-inch long, 3 type transducer with the side scan, down scan, and traditional, I can actually lay that side scan image behind the boat and it'll show me exactly where I've been.
Hmm.
We do have the capability actually with a SD card, a blank one, to record your sonar and create maps as you drive the boat. And that's real nice with that structure scan because if I'm going to go paint, Anchor Bay, I can go and see exactly where I've been and make sure that I get every corner of it that I can reach. So that way we get good solid recordings, and that'll actually give you depth contours down to 6 inches. So again, here's some of the overlays: the weather, the grid, the structure, and the radar. Right here, if it was on, if we had the radar overlay, instead of off, it would say radar. Look ahead. So if you notice the difference between, excuse me, here we are in the center of the chart, and I've got equal distance ahead of me and behind me. Most of the time, we don't really care about what's behind us that much. So we can come into this menu and do the look ahead, and it's now lowered the boat icon to the bottom of the screen, just above your zoom in, zoom out buttons, as opposed to being here in the middle. This allows me to see further ahead of me without having to zoom out. So I'm seeing all the detail because each level of zoom may have a different amount of detail depending on the age of the chart. You can see there's also an option for 3D. So when I click on that, that's going to give me more of that car image that we're kind of used to seeing. In the chart options is where I would go to do my custom shading or to turn on and off
okay.
detail. So to some people, this may be too much data on this chart screen. We can simplify that by unchecking things under the chart options. Down here, it's telling me that I'm using the CMAP chart 201. So that is our reveal coastal Great Lakes chart. So this has got all the contours for the Great Lakes. And it's on the coastal side instead of the lake side, which is something that was confusing to a lot of people. So if you were to go to your West Marine store to buy a chart chip, you'd want to make sure you went to coastal and got the Great Lakes chip, or if you were down in Florida as Pat is, then you'd want to get the proper CMAP for that region.
Okay.
When we make a waypoint, so again, earlier, hopefully you remember when I hit the hamburger up here and brought down the menu, it said new. So we went on hit new waypoint. Well, the default is to number them 0 to 5,000. We're going to get our latitude, longitude, and then we have symbols. So there's about 20 different symbols that you can use. This one is a martini glass. I was thirsty when I was doing this. And then you'll notice the color wheel, and there's 7 different colors to it. So for any of the fishermen out there, or fisherwomen, um, what I do is I'm a walleye fisherman on Lake Erie. So I pick a symbol for this year, and now I have 7 different classes of size. So like with walleye, a smaller walleye, 17, 18-inch fish is really good eating. The bigger fish, the 28, 30-inch, they're older, tend to be a little tougher, sometimes a little bit more fishy. But if I'm fishing a tournament, I want to know where I caught those big fish. If I'm going out to catch dinner, maybe I want to go find those little fish. So by having the different colors for the same symbol, I can start to see over a few years' time a lot of very important information for a fisherman on that screen just by looking at the different colored of icons. We do have the ability to change the name. So we're going to click on the name. We're going to hit the X button. That'll get rid of that. And then I did Freedom Boat Club Demo 1. So again, here I've changed it to a green circle instead of the martini glass. Different options.
Good point.
You can also hit the More Options button here. I wasn't smart enough to do that. When we do that, it'll drop out a dialog box that you could actually type in, hey, we went up to St. Clair, Michigan, and there's a great marina, really good tenants there, very clean. There's a restaurant across from the marina. And the fun thing is there's a bowling alley across the street. It's a 5-minute walk. We did a group trip of about 6 boats and 20 people up into Lake Huron from Lake Erie, and that was probably the best day of the trip. Was in in St. Clair, Michigan, off the St. Clair River. So again, cruising, we can do that. If I'm fishing, I can tell you what the conditions were, what bait I was running, how far back it was, what the depth was, and what the results were. So again, this is an opportunity to, if you want, to create a lot of information right on the unit. And this would all be downloadable onto a card so you can take it home with you. So on a shared boat, that could be nice. And if you get, and we'll get to uh, the app for your phones, but you'll actually be able to save all those waypoints, routes, and trails to your phone via that Wi-Fi connection. So again, this is just our home screen. Over here on the right side are custom screens that we've created. So this is chart and echo. The second one down is chart and radar. Then we have chart and navigation screen. So the navigation screen was one of those early screens that I showed you. It had the 4 boxes in the corner and kind of a 3D bird's eye view from behind the boat. If you look the next one down, that's chart and sonar, but I've split it instead of left and right, top and bottom. So again, just different options. Here in the center are our tiles or different functions or apps, if you will. So if I hit chart, it's going to go to chart. If I press and hold on chart, I'm going to get a series of pre-formed screens for you. So there'll be 2 charts, chart and sonar, chart and radar, chart and autopilot, chart and navigation, chart and instruments that's already created for you. So just by holding your finger down, you're going to get some additional options. You tap the one that you want, and that's the screen that you're going to go to. And that would be true for each one of these function apps. As I said earlier, we can customize these screens with your staff. So if you don't have radar on the boat, we get rid of that icon to avoid confusion. Same thing with the autopilot, maybe even with the instruments. Over here on the left side of the screen, we have our waypoints, routes, and trails. So when I click on that, that's going to give me all my waypoints. Waypoint being just an XY coordinate. So it's this dock, it's this rock pile, it's this channel entrance, and it's an XY coordinate, and that's going to be a waypoint. A route is going to be a series of waypoints linked together, again, to help us navigate around a known object. And we can do that manually, or we can do that automatically as well. It's called auto routing. To do the auto routing, again, we have to make sure that the boat information was set up properly. We need to have a card, either Navionics or CMAP. You pick the destination that you want to go to. You pick a spot right in front of the boat, you hit auto route, and it'll calculate the best route available based on the information that you've given it. There will be an option to okay once it does that. So if you know, hey, that's a real skinny spot, I want to move, or something, maybe a boat sunk in a channel, so I want to go move that one waypoint over, you can do that. For Patricia and her friends, there's a tide stations. So when you click that, you'll get your tides and currents. If we have alarms, so we might have a shallow water, might have a deep water alarm. You could set an alarm for battery voltage. So let's say we've got a boat that's a couple years old and the batteries are okay, but they're getting a little weak. We want to set an alarm where that's going to go off at, say, 11 volts. That way we should be able to start the motors and get you back without having to get towed back in. Vessels, so that has to do with AIS, or the Automatic Identification System. All the commercial traffic, all the freighters are broadcasting a VHF signal that we could pick up if we had the right equipment on board the boat. Um, we actually have the ability to do that with our VHFs now. They will receive the AIS signal, and on your chart plotter and your radar screen, you'll get a little black triangle. When you click on it, it'll give you the closest point of approach, so the distance till we intersect, and it'll give you the TCPA, the time for that. So we've all been in a situation where you see a boat on the horizon, big freighter or another vessel. Is he coming at me? Is he going away? I'm not sure. So when we pick up that AIS signal and we click on it and the CPA, or closest point of approach, is shrinking, I got to keep my eye on him. I may want to find out who he is. So I can click on that icon and get the name of the vessel. And now I can call him on the VHF and say, hey, I'm a pleasure craft off your port stern. Do you see me? Or your port bow? Yes, we've got you on our radar. Okay. So that just brings some safety and some situational awareness into your operation of the vessel. And that's really the main thing that we're trying to do with our product, is give you situational awareness. We want you to know where you are, who's around with you. And so that's where we get the radar, channel markers, shallow spots, harbors, marinas, etc. So we're just trying to give you information so that you can make good choices so that you have fun and a safe time with your family.
Excellent.
This is waypoints, routes, and trails. So if we go back to here, if I click on this upper left-hand corner, it's going to bring up this screen. So we can see there's FBC Demo 1. So it tells me the latitude, longitude. So this is my house. And I did this at 12:26 today. If I clicked on routes, it would give me whatever routes I had, and then tracks or trails. So as we start the unit, it's going to start to drop little breadcrumbs, or there's the capability for it to drop a breadcrumb trail for each day that I go out. There's 5,000 dots in each trail. So when I get to 5,001, it's going to take dot number 1 and make it 5,001. So we may have to do some setup where we say, if I'm going way offshore, fishing the Gulf Stream, I'm going to be 70 miles offshore. I may want to drop a waypoint every 5 minutes, as opposed to automatic, which is like every 30 seconds. If I'm in Lake St. Clair and I'm running from Harrison Township up to Algonac, that's a pretty quick run. So I should be all right with the automatic. The nice thing with that, especially if you ever go cruising where, hey, we come into a harbor, it starts to get dark out. My situational awareness isn't great. Well, I came in, I can follow that trail and reverse it and follow my way in on the way back out. And the nice thing is, if that's something that you're going to do a lot, you can then save that trail or track into a route, which is then, again, repeatable and reversible. So this is just my slender fingers hitting the echo button to bring up an echo screen. So again, what we're looking at is we're 68.5 feet of water, 58 degrees Fahrenheit is the water temperature, and I'm at 83 kilohertz. So that is the medium frequency. In sonar, we have 200 kilohertz, shallow water, high sensitivity, very little coverage. The medium frequency, 83 kilohertz, going to be used up to about 300 feet of water, whereas the 200s is usually 150 or less. This is going to give me about 3 times the amount of width, but it's a stronger signal. So like smaller fish, like a perch, we might blow through those, but we're going to see the bottom. And then the 50 kilohertz is what we're going to use. That'll get us up into the 1,500 to 2,000 feet of bottom capability. And those are very wide. So a lot of times, like in Lake Erie, where we're 30 feet on average, I would use a 50 kilohertz. I'm looking at about a 28-foot circle on the bottom of the lake, and this is allowing me to try to find a school of fish that I can then work. Over here on the right side too, you'll see there's the voltage, the depth, the water temperature, the time, uh, distance, your fuel gallons, and then the voltage supply. Uh, some of the controls for the sonar is range, so I can pick a manual range or I can pick auto. When I go into auto, it will always keep the bottom on the screen. So as I go through here, right now we're at 60 feet. Well, the water is actually deeper than 60 feet. That's why I don't see anything on the right side of the screen. So if I switch that to auto, the bottom would always stay on the screen. This is where we're going to select our 283 or 50 kilohertz. And then the gain is the strength of the signal, the power behind it. We can go into auto, and then I typically actually will back auto off anywhere from 4 to 7% because I want to clear out and see bigger fish. I don't care so much about the real small vegetation or the real small bait fish. So it's going to take some information off the screen, but for me, that's more valuable because otherwise it's too much clutter. We can play with the color, but 73 to 76 is the default. So again, here we have auto. So I check the box and then it's going to keep that bottom on all the time. This is with the gain up, so you can see lots of clutter. There's a bunch of fish over here off that backside of that hill again, but that's a lot of noise and I'm missing stuff up here. So when I turn that down, it clears that image up. And the other nice thing again is that I can play with these settings and then come back and click auto and it'll take it back to where it should be. So it lets you see what your inputs do. There will be times that you don't want this data over here on the side of the screen. So if you hit the power button, which is in the lower left-hand corner, that's going to bring up the system control box. So this is where we're going to click on instrument bar and that bar will go away. I can also, you see right here on this screen, I've got a 50-50 split between the traditional sonar and the down scan. Well, if I come here to adjust split, I could maximize the traditional sonar and slide that split further over to the right. So I'm still seeing some detail here, but what I'm really interested in is more so what's on the left side of the traditional sonar. You'll also see the brightness. So as we go out, as night comes, we're going to want to drop that backlighting so we didn't get night blindness, which is great until the next morning when I power the unit up, it comes up says Simrad and then it goes to a black screen because I've turned the backlighting down. What we can do is just tap our power button, just a momentary tap, and it'll work through the stages of backlighting and bring that backlighting back up for you in the morning. If we had some little kids running around the boat, I could actually get the screen where I wanted it and then touch lock so that if they start grabbing the screen, they're not going to change what I'm looking at or start making waypoints or, that gets real interesting when you got an autopilot involved. So there is a night mode, which will turn all the white lettering into red. So again, reduce your night blindness, keep your situational awareness going. When it's the end of the day, on the front lower left portion of the screen, you'll see a little round button. That's our power button, which is going to bring up the system control. I don't want you to hold that down. I want you to tap it, bring up the system control and hit power off. That way we know it went off and you didn't just turn down the backlighting. So it's happened frequently where people thought they turned the unit off, they turned down the backlighting, they left the batteries on, they killed the batteries, and now the bilge pump doesn't work.
Say that one more time.
So what we
How
want
to
to do
turn
is
it off?
we're going to hit the power button in the lower left-hand corner of the glass screen. It's going to pop up the system control, and then you're going to hit this little button third from the left on the top row that says power off. And that way we know for certain that the unit is shut down.
Thank you.
Yep. I try to get a picture. It's real hard to see, but it's in the lower left-hand corner. There's a little white circle with a line through it, and that's where that power button is. So that's how we'll turn the unit on in the morning. Again, if it ever came up and said Simrad and then went black, just tap that 2 or 3 times and should bring the backlighting back up. So again, here's our traditional sonar, our down scan. I just did a couple of screenshots. This is the down scan, and see these little white dots out here? That's what the native image for a fish looks like in the down scan. What we did a few years ago is something called fish reveal. So I take the arches that we're used to seeing on traditional sonar and I overlaid on the highly detailed bottom structure. So now I've got the best of both worlds. I see what I'm fishing. This is a rock pile. That could be an inverted wreck. It gives me the detail so I know what I'm looking at. And the funny thing is I've got a staffer in a pro staff that's in Inland Lake in Pennsylvania. So I always caught fish in this one corner. He said this came out. I realized it was a canoe that had sunk and was upside down and fish would kind of hide underneath there. So now you understand what the environment is that you're working in. So when you're trying to replicate things, you can look for similar places and oh, I know what to do with that type of structure. So again, this is all the whole thing about these units is information. I want to give you information, whether it's fishing, navigating, weather, radar, autopilot, engine, so that you can make good, safe choices. Fish reveal on the menu down here at the bottom turns that on and off. And this also shows us we've got time variable gain. That's very advanced stuff. Don't mess with that. But there are 9 different palettes that you can choose from here for the overlay of the fish on your down scan. So we check the box, fish reveal, and those little bright colors pop up for the fish again. This, whoops, go back up for a second. There it is. So this is what it natively looks like without fish reveal on. So these little marks are actually all those marks. What this is doing, because it's a very high frequency, is it's just picking up the air bladder only. It's a fan shaped beam. So it's only like 3 degrees front and back, but 70 degrees wide. So it gives me that bottom detail, but it's the fish are only in it for a microsecond. That's why they're such little blobs. So we figured out a way to, again, lay the traditional sonar on top of the high definition down scan. Now this is the tricky one. This is side scan. So your boat is at the top of the screen, in the middle of the screen. This white line, I want you to think of that as your transducer on the transom. This dark area from the white line to there is your water column. So just like I've got the water column here, surface to bottom, think of taking that go unit and flipping it on its left side. That's what I'm looking at here. So this is the water or air surface, the bottom of the lake or ocean. And then the cool thing, again, so we are in 68 feet of water. We're going 150 feet right and left. So the edge of the screen, there's these little white dots down here in the corner. That's fish that are between 100 and 150 feet to the right side of the boat. These fish are right underneath the boat. Going to the left side, same thing. Surface, water column, bottom of the lake, and then seeing the bottom of the lake off to the side. So what I've done is right here where this water column meets the bottom, I want you to think of a piece of paper that's folded at 90 degrees. That's what we're looking at in the real world. So this is the flat part of that piece of paper. This is the bottom of the lake. This part would be the vertical part. That's our water column, our depth. And what I've done, because I'm working in 2Ds, is I've hinged it basically where the bottom and the water column meet, and I've laid that vertical element over. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense.
Okay.
Here's question. Here's a picture of just the left side. So again, here's the surface. This is my water column with fish underneath. This is the bottom. And again, we're going up to 150 feet out to the left-hand side. And then the same thing on the right side. This is useful if you are fishing a river channel or a harbor. And I don't care about the left side because I want to fish the bank and it's on the right. So I'm going to go to the right side of the side scan and I'll see my corrugated seawalls. I'll see the dock post. I'll see the fish hanging out underneath them. And a lot of times, like if there's weed beds and you're looking for bass, you might see areas where they've bedded down. So now I could go and lay 3 or 4 waypoints. And then if you had a trolling motor, you go up to the bow and work those bedding areas off the trolling motor and casting towards them. So that's what I had for pretty pictures. I'm going to, nope, that's not what I wanted. Let's see. If we can get out of this. Nope, that's not what I want. Okay, should see my shiny happy face now, right? So, any questions? I'll open it up to the group.
So
looks like we got something on chat.
yeah, there's a couple of chats. Pat asked the question, will this system be compatible with Navionics?
Yes. Yep. So when you put the Navionics card or the CMAP card in with the unit on, it might take a minute or two, but it'll pop up and it'll say, do you want to switch charting to this card? You hit yes, and now it's reading that versus the data that's built into the machine. We don't update the built-in cartography, but the chips are available, and they range from anywhere from about 150 to 250. And it's about every 3 years, maybe, unless something dramatic's happened in the area. You probably get a new chip and get the update that way.
My actual question, I think, is your screen looks exactly like my Navionics. Maybe I don't need to make everybody get Navionics if we're going to have these units on our boats.
Correct. Yep.
I like it.
Yep. We've done a lot with our charting over the last 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
And the stuff that is built in is as good as anything that Navionics was doing, 5 years ago.
Excellent.
We're all doing more and more regions where we're doing actual sounding gathering, recording, so that we can make these contour lines. But yeah, but what's built in is really good. And the nice thing too is if you bought a boat from the St. Clair chapter, right? Well, that's going to have a Lake St. Clair chart. It's not going to have your chart. I've still got charting built into it.
I like it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So what our members now can get the Simrad app just like they have the Navionics app, correct?
Yep.
And those,
Yeah.
and that will sync into the chart plotter on
Correct.
the Simrad chart plotter. That's
yeah.
a
So
really
if
cool
I
thing.
know I'm gonna rent a boat this weekend, and I want to go up to
Chris,
Sarnia.
we don't talk about rentals in the club. These are
Okay. Well, I'm going to schedule a boat for the
There you
weekend.
go.
How's that? That way I can bring up my Simrad or CMAP app. It's the same thing. I can lay out, hey, this is where I want to go this weekend. And when I get on the boat, I go into the power button, and there's a sync button on the bottom of that pop-up, and it'll bring all those waypoints, routes, and trails in. So, any other questions?
And then Steve Andruski asked if our staff at Freedom Boat Club can set this all up for him. And yet the answer is yes, Steve. The boats will be preset for you.
Yep. And like I said, Steve, you and I can get together maybe in the next couple of weeks, and I'll show you how we lock in that database.
Perfect.
And I can reach out to you, Patricia, or reach out to me. And,
excellent. That'd be great.
Yep. And it's super, because especially in Michigan, I got a lot of dealers. The boat goes up to northern Michigan, and the kids get on, and the guy comes back and goes, "Hey, nothing works." And
That's what worries me. If I train people to use it, and then the person that used it before them messes it all up, I don't know how to get it all back. So I need to know how to do that.
And so your dock personnel that are cleaning it could come in.
Yes.
And you go into storage just real quickly, and it says my files, and then it'll say database, and you hit import, and it takes it back the way you wanted it. So whatever they did that day, it comes back to the way that Freedom Boat Club wants it. So
Thank you.
again, reach out to me and we'll get that information to you.
Thank you.
So
Yep.
question, if we use your app and put in our own plots in our phones, we take those home with us, we come back, we have our own plots when we sync up with the unit?
Yep.
So we don't have to worry about what anybody else is doing, we can just create our own? And
Correct.
use
So
that app?
everybody could, again, the dock personnel could then wipe out the unit, put it back to original, maybe just with, the channel entrance and the heart and the dockage, and maybe a couple of gas docks. And then, each member can enter their own stuff.
Perfect.
It'll remember it though. So if I do it on Tuesday, somebody wipes it out on Wednesday, I come back on Thursday, it's in my phone and
It's on your phone. Yep. Yep. So
Okay,
it's existing on your phone. So you just re-sync it to the machine.
beautiful.
Yep.
Well, Chris, thank you very much. And everybody that joined, thank you for joining us. I thought this was just an outstanding presentation, wonderful for all of our members. And I was actually just texting Pat's daughter, who's the community development manager with the Tampa location. I think every club should be hosting this exact same event.
I agree.
We're certainly going to be sharing it with all of our members, but also the entire boating community around Lake St. Clair. Chris, if anybody wants to buy Simrad, how do they go about doing that?
So we are available at your West Marines, Bass Pros, Cabela's. You can, of course, look on the simrad-yachting.com and find your local servicing dealer. And I highly recommend that because when they install it, we make sure that everything's done properly. And there's also the ability to then, if the system's big enough, you would get onboard warranty. So again, if you use Snowbird and I go down to Florida for the winter and something happens, I'm going to get a local certified dealer on there to verify that, hey, it's not a wire that came loose. There's a fault. If there's a fault, then your warranty kicks in. So.
Again, thank you for everybody for joining us. Chris, we're going to let you go home to your family.
Thanks for the opportunity. It's a great organization. I've got friends in it that own it, and so congratulations. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, all I can say is our members love it, and we've got over 50 new boats coming in this season, so we spoil them pretty good up here.
Perfect. Thanks so much, everyone.
All right,
Good
take
night.
care, everybody.
Thank you.